the world, and we're gonna discover during this conversation what we can do as chefs. Do we have enough impact? Can we really do something? Can we be a change to the world? My today's guests are Geeta Bansal, former university professor, autodidactic chef, restaurateur, cancer survivor, food writer, often appearing on TV and radio and speaking at gastronomic events. In 2018, she launched a game-changing culinary platform, Salty, her independent quarterly magazine. Hi, Geeta.
Hi.
Nice to have you here. With me in this discussion room is also Emma Bengtsson, who spent first 4 years of her career at the only Michelin 2-star restaurant in Sweden at that time, discovering her love for pastry. Through other professional experiences, she became the executive chef of the New York's acclaimed Aquavit restaurant in 2014. Hi, Emma. Nice to meet you. We also have Margot Janse, who has a long experience with South African top restaurants and introduced tasting menus to South Africa when she created the tasting room within the Ciro Molinaros. In 2009, Margot started Isabelo, the charity project which helps children, and this project became her main objective. Hi. And we also have Antonia Klugmann, who is the chef and the owner of the Italian Michelin-starred restaurant L'Argine à Vencò, located in modern building, contiguous to a 1730-old mill, surrounded by the nature where only 8 tables and 20 guests are served, and ingredients are not inanimate objects without roots. Hello, Antonia.
Hi.
It's so nice to have a panel full of superwomen. I'm really glad that we can talk now about this subject. Can chefs save the world in such a companionship? So I would like to start right away with the question to Margot regarding your project, because it's something very, very interesting. You generally left everything behind you did previously, and you put your whole heart into this Isabelo charity project. What drove you to that? What was the reason you've started this project? And please elaborate a little bit what this project is about and how it changes the world.
Thank you. Well, I was the chef at Le Quartier Français in the tasting room for 22 years, since 1995. And in 2009, we started doing cooking courses, and we decided we needed to do a class that would involve community and really for people to help feed the needy. And I think living in South Africa and living on the doorstep of poverty, it's in your face every day. So you can wear the kind of those horse things, and not look, but it's here, and especially in the small village where I live in Franschhoek, it's a kilometer to the right. There's severe poverty, and a kilometer to the left was my utopia with the best ingredients and people spending a lot of money on a dining experience. And so to really kind of bridge that gap, we started with just one muffin once a week, and we invited guests to make that muffin with us for 70 little children, and that was in 2009. And the project grew, and it became part of what we did at the tasting room on a daily basis. We made warm meals, we started supplying fruit and breakfast, and by the time I left the tasting room, which is 3 years ago, we were feeding 1,300 school children every weekday, and I took it with me. And it was never my intention to do it full time. And I think that's a very big point. I really feel it needs to be part of what we do on a daily basis. And at the moment, obviously with lockdown, it became a bit more all absorbing as it extended from just the children to the whole community. And we started feeding a lot more people. But I believe we cannot just be busy with extravagance and super fancy meals when there's so much need and on all levels, not just on food. But for me, children are very close to my heart, and it's not their fault. And the children are the future, so we need to make sure that they can go to school with food in their tummy, so they can concentrate and become smart.
So this is how dining can change somebody's little world day by day on a daily work basis or school day basis. Thank you for sharing this story with us. I would like to go on with trying to find out what we can do and what we are doing, what you are already doing in terms of changing the world. I would like to ask Emma, you have two backgrounds. You have the Swedish background, but also you've spent some years in US already. How do you see both cultures, and do you see that the fine dining can change or changes anything in any of them, in both of them, how it differs?
Well, I think there's a big difference between Sweden and US in many aspects. And something that shocked me a lot moving here was how many people are actually living underneath the poverty line that don't have enough money for food. And that was something I didn't expect to see, and something that's considered one of the best countries in the world. So that for me was something that drove me to do. I can't do everything, and as a chef, you, even if you would like to save the whole world, I think you gotta have to start locally and seek out and see whatever you can do to change the future for as many as possible. So what I found that I could do here in New York was get involved with the charities. I work very closely with City Harvest, who's feeding everyone in New York, and feeding kids, feeding everyone that can afford to get food. So I think that is something that is very doable for everyone that's here, and that is something I never saw until I moved here. And I think the difference when you compare Sweden to US was that food is more accessible, and it's something that is not that hard to come by in Sweden, mostly because we don't have 350 million people in our little country. So obviously when you do move up into these countries with a massive population, the struggle gets more real. So I think the difference here is that everyone is there's so much in need of food in the city, and it's not coming in towards everyone. So that is what I'm concentrating most of my effort to be able to get food out to everyone that needs it.
Sure. Yeah, that might be a problem of the scale as well. I'm talking to you from Warsaw, so I can more relate to Swedish than to US situation regarding what is accessible and what are the actions that are undertaken by various foundations or people who really have a power to work on some issues. Geeta, you established your Salty magazine where you talk to a lot of chefs. So I would be very interested, what do you get from those discussions, and what kind of initiatives, what kind of actions did you hear from those people when you talk to them? Do you have any interesting stories, powerful stories, how the chefs are changing the world?
Well, you have two people who have written some beautiful stories, Emma, Antonia, and a lot of other people in the community. Uh, you know, what I've seen I've been in the business for about 36 years now, and I've seen the perception of food has changed so much. Food has become like an agent of change. And I felt we need that change in our industry as well, to provide a platform that is not limited to just those 5 or 6 or 10 faces you see everywhere around the world. I wanted to have a place where everybody could bring their point of view, share it, inspire others, stand in solidarity with causes like, what Margot is doing, what she's doing with food is taking it as an agent of change. In the last few years, there's been a lot of discussion about the role of chefs. And, now the very fact that you have chefs on a discussion like this is because their opinions matter. They have the power and the ability to speak about things. They are well informed, not just about food. They're supposed to be informed about many subjects like sustainability, politics of food, everything. And but everybody has something valuable to say. So I felt we need a place where everybody could come from all parts of the world. It doesn't have to be just somebody who already has that status. Of course, that gives you a power to carry your voice farther and to make it more accessible to others. And I've seen, as a result of the magazine, from all the comments and feedback we get, people are very inspired by the stories. These are not just the stories of the big names, the many starred chefs who are appearing on Netflix or whatever. It's everybody across the board. It's a young chef, in a country like India, a young woman who sets up a business, and how she is kind of the underdog and fighting against it, everything, the establishment to take her message forward. It's when Antonia shares her story about dealing with a pandemic, it's very truthful. It's very honest. Emma writes about, finding her place in the world, the day she walked into the culinary school. These are things that we never hear about. The commercial media never spoke about these things. And so I felt we needed this, this kind of conversation to happen, to change this. And right now, during the pandemic, people are sharing so many things. You have chefs like maybe, Vladimir from Moscow putting out his email and his, Instagram handle for everybody to say, call me with questions and you can ask me anything. And the same story is with, maybe an activist from Brazil, from the Amazon, who's 26 years old. And, she has something to say about what's happening in her community. So it's like a big gamut across the board of people that we try to bring in to share their stories. And, like if Margot shares her story, it can inspire somebody at a small level to start something within their own community. Every initiative doesn't have to be like a headline making news. It can be something small. We need to give the proper space and the voice to people, who open a restaurant in a community with 10 people, 5 people they employ. They buy locally, they hire locally, they give back to the community locally. So, and they're, changing the way people eat with what they're cooking. They're making less desirable ingredients more popular, showing sustainable practices in a very small manner. So that's like a ripple effect. It spreads out. So that's what we are doing. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, because like sharing those stories is inspirational. So this way we are changing the world if we are reading them and getting inspired and taking some actions on our side. So the chefs are becoming somehow the leaders, not only people who prepare food and inspire those who want to prepare the food, but also inspire us through their personalities, through their life stories. So that's very encouraging. You've mentioned sustainability, so I would like to call out Antonia on that, because I know it's so important to you, being close to the nature. Those things about being eco-friendly, close to the nature, sustainable, they are very popular, they're very trendy now, but sometimes we might get the impression that those are only the slogans. It's good to say them, it's good to have them on put somewhere, but do we really care about where the food comes from, how do we process it, what we eat, how we impact the world with what we eat? So please share your views on that.
Well, it's really a good slogan talking about sustainability. It's a good fashion for me, and being green, it's not a bad thing, I'm trying my best to do it every day in a better way, because I think it's like a road, and I am really far from where I want to be. My restaurant, as many others, is not sustainable at all. Even if I try every day, not wasting things, trying to do my best, showing my cooks in the kitchen how to prepare everything with all the new techniques, not to waste everything. But it's really hard, I think, and in modern times, being in the business and trying our best to do to not to waste. It's very difficult in fine dining, but I think we have to push, every day. And I use herbs that are not rare at all, like weeds, and something that has no value at all in the market, something that you cannot buy. Sometimes what you cannot buy, what has no price in the market, is more has more value for me than caviar or than gold. And this is something that I show every day, even to my guests, because I think those people who come at my restaurant, only 8 tables, 20 seats is nothing comparing to other restaurants all around the world. But yes, I think showing how precious can be an aubergine or a zucchini cooked in a proper way, not wasting anything, is my way, to do that. And I know it's not enough, but I try.
As you mentioned, it's a very good slogan to be eco-friendly, to be sustainable. The only concern might be that some people might only put it as a slogan and then don't use it in an everyday life. But as you've said, it's quite hard to be a fully sustainable restaurant, especially at some level. So let's hope that we all can find a way to be more kind to our planet and still enjoy everything that we would like to see on our tables. Margot, what do you think other people can do, other chefs can do to be the world saviors? If we are still with the topic, can chefs save the world? What would you see as some other inspirations? Maybe you have other stories to share of anybody else, or maybe you have some ideas that you would like to make come true one day.
I think it's very important that chefs share their stories and inspire each other, that we don't live on an island and do our own thing, and being part of a chef's community in a small village, I think makes that almost easier. Like, we've always been very connected as chefs in restaurants, and even 15, 20 years ago, if you ran out of mushrooms, you could run across the road and we would help each other. And so I think for me also, what's like a year ago, I called upon all the chefs in Franschhoek and we sat around the table, and I said, if I, as a kind of one-woman show with assistants, can rustle up chefs from all over the world to cook for the children of Franschhoek, can you imagine what we can do if we do things together? But it obviously takes initiative, but it takes a lot of time, and it takes somebody to lead that, and everybody's wrapped up in their own world. And I think we have to take big lessons from this pandemic. I think for me it's been incredible how the community of chefs in Franschhoek have come together, but also in neighboring towns, in Stellenbosch and in Cape Town, and how people have got down to it and have cooked for the community and gathered for the community. And we will continue that. Everybody's obviously slowly gone back to work, and we've only our borders will be opening on the 1st of October, which we desperately need. A lot of places have closed, but it's been an incredible exercise in caring. And in South Africa, we have a saying called Ubuntu, and it's really about empathy and sharing. On my own, I'm actually nobody. I am because of you. And I think that's been a strong lesson. And I feel very strongly about continuing that forward as a movement. and I think we can all do something. You know, you don't have to feed 1,000 people. And I think Antonia is saying, oh, you know, it's very little, but it's not very little. We started making one muffin once a week for 70 children. And in those 70 children's life, we made a difference once a week. And I think if you look at the mountain, it's very big and it's very scary, and you almost want to give up because what difference is it going to make? But actually every step and every drop is making a difference, and it's inspiring the people that work for you and the people that work with you. And I know every single chef that has worked in my kitchen that has somehow been part of Isabelo, they're all extremely supportive still. They feel so proud that they've been part of that and that it's still continuing. So I don't think anything we do to save something or to make the world a better place is too little.
You've mentioned that we are still in a lockdown, at least in terms of traveling, and the fine dining is frequently about flying, traveling all over the world to the new places, tasting food. So it's not so much sustainable as we might think about it. It's not so eco-friendly. It's not so good for the planet, at least from the perspective of traveling by planes. Do you think, Emma, is there a solution to that? Can still the fine dining be more sustainable, more eco-friendly, with having this in mind that frequently we travel for food?
Well, I've been thinking about that a lot lately, especially being stuck at home. I've always traveled very much, and the last year or so, I've been not really leaving the country at all. So it's one of those things that are hard. I think in general that traveling is becoming like bigger and bigger for every year that goes, and chefs and all of us do travel more. I think it's hard to maybe not do it because I also see it as a positive view where you have a chance and ability to travel to make a difference. I wish there would be in the future maybe a better way where you could travel. I think some of the things I've tried lately is not to just travel somewhere to do one thing. If I can combine different trips in one, I'll definitely try and do that. So most of the time I go abroad, it is for charity events or it is for helping out to fundraisers and things like that. And I'm trying to balance the good towards the negative a little bit with it. But I think what I've learned a lot from the pandemic now as well is that it's not always a necessity to travel. You could just looking at this panel today, where maybe they would have flown a lot of chefs to the other side of the world to be part in a panel discussion where you could actually do it online. It's always hard to cook online and send that food along, but I think there's need to be a balance to every travel you make in the world. And I think they always say that 3 Michelin stars, and so it's worth the travel, but you also hopefully gotta see the positive that it brings to the country where people do travel into. The restaurant might be the one that attracts people to come visit, but they also learn and experience the rest of that culture. And I think that is something that is more important now than ever in the world, to learn and see other cultures and see what is going around in the world and not just trust the news. One of the biggest things I've always loved is to be able to go to other countries, learn from the local culture and educate myself on how everyone in the world are living and coping, and not just being a person who are stuck and seeing the world, the kind of world I've been living in, coming from Sweden and now New York. So I think it is very important to, as a chef as well, to learn how other countries are dealing with their economics and how they're dealing with farmers and local produce. And I think I've learned so much on my travels that I've brought back and implemented at the restaurant that have been coming out of that. So I think there just have to be a balance on how you travel in the future.
Sure, this is one of the ideas, yes, hopefully we can implement to combine our roots in the way that we are most efficient in being eco-friendly. Talking about the changes we can make, but also about the changes that happened, Geeta, what are the biggest changes in the food industry, in chefs that you've observed in the last decade? What is changing also in terms how chefs are changing the world?
You know, chefs are changing themselves. Firstly, they are not the same chefs we used to see 10 years ago. They are more vocal and more active and more, all the TV and all these different programs and conferences have also kind of popularized a chef culture that is kind of far removed from reality in some ways. Because one thing seems to get overlooked sometimes is that it's still all about cooking, and when you're cooking, you're performing a service, which is like a transaction. You get paid for performing a service, and we tend to forget that part of it, and who's at the end of it are the customers. And when Emma was talking about the travel part of it, what we have come to realize during the pandemic is, and maybe it's going to last till next year, who knows how long, is we need to be connected to our own communities first before connecting to the wider communities. Of course, all interaction is important, but right now most restaurants, even those that pivot to whether they're starred restaurants or on some list or whatever, they're doing takeout and they're trying to survive based on what is around them. Earlier with travels, 70% sometimes of the customers or guests were coming from other parts of the world. That's no longer feasible. And, so we have become aware of all, how fragile our industry is right now. And that has got, chefs talking about different things now, and with the pandemic, we have also exposed so many other issues in the industry. We have the socio-economic disparities, we have the racial inequalities. So far, we are only hearing a lot about the gender imbalance, about the 50-50 and all that. But the fact is that people invest a lot, when they go into the industry now. Earlier days, people would turn to cooking when there was no other choice. They couldn't do anything else. And now people go to culinary school, like, Emma, you went to culinary school. I don't know about you, Margot, but we invest a lot in that future. So we need to put it to good use, and when we talk about, I find it amusing to hear the term that can chefs change the world. I think firstly, we need to change our own small communities before we can change the world, because those little communities together make up the world. We don't exist in a vacuum. That's true also. But at the same time, we need to deepen those connections, not just with producers. Sometimes when people talk about things like sustainability and other issues, it's like a word that's used. It's words not followed by action. So maybe the time has come, and this little break that we have all gotten has given us time to reflect, to think back on what's important, what's not important. In my case, I got this break when I first got diagnosed with cancer. And I kind of, you come at a threshold in life where you, go over what you value, what your ethics are, what you want to leave behind, what you have assimilated during all these years in the industry, and what you can impart and share with others. And that's what prompted me to come up, with salty, which is like everybody, discouraged me and said, oh, right now magazines are folding up, nobody's going to this business. But this is not a commercial magazine. This is a platform of sharing for the community. It's open to everybody across the board. So those are the kind of changes, that I have seen happen in the world right now. We have chefs like maybe Jose Andres or Masu Vatura, who are out to change the world in a big way. But then there are small chefs, not just chefs, everybody in the food industry, maybe bar owner, a cafe owner, a street cart vendor, making little, packed meals to deliver to hospital workers. Or right now we have fires in California, delivering them to frontline workers. We never talk about those people, but they are there also. And not everybody looks for recognition or for fame. Some people do this because they feel it is the right thing to do. And, to do things like that, you sometimes have to stand apart from the crowd. And that takes a lot of courage. It's not easy, and but that's when you need the support. And I feel like, I do get the support in my initiative. I'm sure Margot gets a lot of support in the initiative. Antonia does, Emma does, the city harvest, most chefs in New York are very active in it. So we all need that little push behind us. And at this point, being politically incorrect, I feel that women sometimes don't step forward to help other women. Maybe women need to be a little more prominent in that field and, kind of encourage something good that's happening. We have to lose this mentality of me and I. We have to start thinking in terms of we and us, because like Margot said, you cannot do anything on your own. You can start something, but armies don't move. They're not one man or woman or one person armies, but you need to have, a strong support and a community behind you to push any kind of initiative. And I see that forming in many different parts of the world. I feel the younger chefs, firstly, they might get attracted to the industry in many cases because of the glamorization and all that, being somebody. But then they also, are realizing that you need to build a foundation first. You can't jump to that, that rank or that step right away. And one more thing that this pandemic has exposed is, the system within our industry. It was at breaking point already. We are not supporting, the workers who actually, do all the grunt work, all the hard labor. There was wage discrimination, medical, support. All that was not available. Some parts of the world, it's, you have social medicine, you have a lot of, different government benefits. But in the US, there is nothing. I mean, our industry employs 16 million people in the small independent businesses. They're all out of work right now. And we didn't get any help from our government. What we got was very little. It's like you have a big gushing wound and you stick a little Band-Aid on it and say, oh, okay, that should fix it. So, it's also brought up the fact that, chefs or people in the industry also need to have power, not just have a voice that they can go on the media and they can talk about different things, but then we need to have power to move the government. And for that, we have to work towards some kind of representation to do all those things.
Mm-hmm. Sure, like being together, speaking as we instead of me, it is much more powerful. So thank you for sharing your thought on that. You've mentioned a couple of times the power of media. So I would like to ask Antonia, what do you think that the impact of television can be of this positive kind? So is the media, from also your personal experience from the MasterChef, can be a way for the chefs to transmit some positive message, to really change anything?
Well, I think every day we are quite responsible for the messages that we give to people. You know, it doesn't mean that. It's not only the television. Every interview that we make every day, every podcast that we that we have, everything is a message to the community. And of course, television has more powerful in terms of numbers, but it doesn't mean that it is the only way to communicate to a large amount of people. I tried using a big television program to tell the story about our restaurant, about our little region in the Northeast that was not so famous, and it increased a lot our business, and it was really useful. But at the end, is like Geeta says, it's not only about me, you know, it's about my region, it's about my ingredients, it's about my producers. So every time we speak about our restaurant, it's not only about us, it's not only about the chef. And I think the lockdown also showed us how much we are all connected. We had the perception that we could do everything. That in one day we could be in New York, and the day after we could be back at our restaurant, and everything was fine. But at the end, we are really connected each other. All around the world, but at the end we are really rooted in our community, and this is something that is beautiful, really powerful, something about modern times, and I love the times that we are living, even with the pandemic, you know. Being connected is such a great thing, being friendly with and feeling that we are so nearby, even if we are far. But in the end, we are also rooted, and we have to care about our country and about our local guests, because, you know, they saved us at the end of the day. My restaurant is still fully booked now because of my local guests, and this is because I think I'm lucky, because I live in Italy. I live in a rich region and in the heart of Europe. At the end, it's only because I'm lucky. It's not something that I you know, I didn't do anything for that, and so I have to care about all those beautiful restaurants that are located in a region that are not so lucky as me, you know. We are connected in this way, even.
Yes, we are connected. We are one community, one big community, and a lot of small communities, and we have to support each other. But I think that there is also one other community that we can think of, the diners themselves, as a separate community within the community. And I would like to ask Emma, do you think that the diners have more and more impact on the direction that chefs take with their food, or still there is much to say in the hands of the chefs themselves, especially in the light of the situation that now we are focusing on the local communities, not people that come and go, fly in, fly out, but people who we are surrounded with. So how do you feel? Who has more impact on what we are serving now?
So this is something that I've always considered to be, you know, when you come up in the restaurant industry and you're a young chef, and I remember myself saying in the beginning of my years, I was like, this is my food, I'm cooking in my way, take it or leave it. And I think the older you get and the more mature you get into your cooking experience, and how you grow and evolve as a chef, you start realizing that it's a hospitality industry, right? And however much you always feel like you have this vision that you want to see it, you're still not cooking for yourself. You also are cooking for all the diners and all the people who are coming in and supporting your restaurant. And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't stay true to your vision, but you also have to learn to adapt. And the future is coming really fast. And I think most restaurateurs or chefs around the world can say that it's not easy being a chef anymore, because you have 10, 15, 20 years ago, people came in the door and they just ate what you cooked, basically. Now it's food preferences and allergies, and people are educating themselves, which is really great and awesome to see that they kind of pushing chefs even more forward to think about it. Like, they are demanding, where is your vegetables coming from? Where is the fish being sourced? Where is the meat coming from? Are you sustainable? And I think for many chefs, that have opened up our eyes even more, that it is something that is very, very important to consumers as well. So when it comes to how you cook and how you run your restaurants, you really have to take those aspects even more serious than ever nowadays. And especially with the community being more forward thinking into vegetables and sustainability, it's giving us a chance to pick up and evolve maybe even faster than we would have done on our own. And that is something that is the last couple of years has been very much on my mind. I've always thought about a waste and consumption, and that I think plays a little bit role into as well, coming from Sweden into US, where you can also see the amount of food that you put out. Like, more isn't always better. And that's also one of those things where education comes in the younger generation. I think that is something that chefs nowadays have to educate the younger cooks that comes along as well, that they have to look and they have to adapt to their people that are eating new food as well. And it's not just about me anymore. It's actually about the whole community, and the diners are the ones that we are living for. And that's going back to what was said earlier. We have zero tourism in New York as of the moment. So we have to depend on our locals, which have even now made us realize that we have to change around our cuisine a lot. Like, chefs tasting menus at the restaurant at the moment is not sustainable, and that was one of the first things we decided not to come back with. We're running the restaurant as an a la carte restaurant with more approachable dishes, and we see an enormous amount of response to having that available, which makes you think what the future will bring. Will the way of dining change forever? And I think you just have to be more of a listener to what the diners are expecting for you, because they're the ones, the local diners are the ones who are keeping us alive at the moment.
Thank you for that. You've tackled the aspect of what the future will bring. So I would like to ask you all, what do you think should change in the chef's approach, apart from already mentioned sustainability and community appreciation, to make the chefs be the world changers, even if we by world we mean this small community that they live in, so the world just right next to them. What do you think is the chef of the future? What would be the set of attributes of a good chef for the next upcoming years? If we say that we have to change, we have to accommodate some things, not only because of the pandemic, but also because of the changing worlds. Margot?
Well, I think there have been some serious business lessons in the last few 6 months, certainly in South Africa. I think obviously tourism and foreigners are a massive part of the economic infrastructure here. And even also I see it around me where chefs are toning down. I think it's exactly what Emma is saying. Be in tune and And instead of just being on this treadmill that just keeps going and going, and you're just thinking, what next must I do? What next can I do? How do I get recognized, especially in the top game of chefs? To stop and listen. I don't have a restaurant, but I've certainly learned to listen more in these past 6 months. Because, and again, I think it ties in what Emma said. We think we know what people want because, we are the experts, and we do what we want to do. But when we started feeding the community, the poor, hungry community, we knew it. It was a whole bunch of chefs. It was incredible. And we were getting lots of food donated, and we were cooking, for the community. We were making big pots of vegetable stew and making it super flavorful and packaging it individually because it was because of COVID. And then we had a meeting with a lot of the community leaders, and they said, we'd actually like to cook our own food. So we went, okay, like we won't take that personally. So what we'll do is we'll prepare your food, we'll chop everything and we'll cut and we'll do. And at the next meeting, I asked the question and said, are we doing okay? Are you happy with how everything is divided? So we linked in with 12 soup kitchens and started supplying them on a daily basis. We knew and still know who's cooking when. And they said, well, maybe we could receive the vegetables a bit earlier so we can cut it smaller. So I said, okay, so we're not doing okay. We're cutting it too big. And it's basic stuff, but it's actually, instead of thinking that we know what people want, we need to ask, we need to stop, and we need to listen and not take it as an offense. And it's the same, I think, between chefs. We need to listen to each other more and translate that in whichever way you feel is right. But also again in the community, we are feeding people from different cultural backgrounds, but like very different cultural backgrounds. And me coming from a chef's background thought it's very boring if I give you maize meal one day, rice the next day, maize meal one day. So I bought in, like, I don't know, instead of buying beautiful little carrots now, I buy the cheapest, biggest carrot because we need to feed like 40,000 people every month. And so I was buying in a ton of barley and a ton of dried wheat, and the one community loved it from their cultural background. That's what they like to eat. But the other community was like, what are we supposed to do with this? And so again, I had to step back and go, I'm trying to add variation, but actually I need to listen. It's not what people want to eat. What's the point in providing that? And so I'm talking on a very kind of ground level, but I think it's taught me a lot as a chef and how I will change when I cook on that professional level again.
So we know that the chef of the future is a good listener who appreciates the community and at least tries to be sustainable. Antonia, what would be other attributes that you would think of for the chefs of the future?
Well, I think studying is such a great opportunity that we have today as a chef, challenging ourselves every day, not only studying great techniques and modern techniques, but studying our what is around us, because sometimes we look far away from home and we really don't look out of the window of our restaurants. I know this is something maybe not so original, but it's so useful because after the lockdown, the first thing the first travel that I made was 1 hour by car alone through the woods to meet a little producer of goat cheese, and I didn't have the time to meet her until that moment, and it was so important for our restaurant. We changed some way, in a really little way, our perception of goat cheese. And this is something maybe little, but for a restaurant like ours, it is important. And so I say, maybe look out the window the ingredients that are not so far from the restaurant, but also trying to understand what are the needs of the community that is around the restaurant. Even the meal that is not so far from the restaurant, or for me, the vineyards that are just in front of the window. And this is studying for me. This is not only improving the quality of the restaurant, but this is the real studies that we have to make every day, to improve our job and our keep, I think.
So I hear in your answer, not only studying, but also building relationships as for one of the attributes of the modern chef or the chef of the future. Geeta, what would be your thoughts on the chefs of the future?
I think one thing that's going to become very important is health. Chefs, when they cook, when they source, they're going to be very concerned about health, because it's something that most consumers, most guests, diners are very much into right now. And this little break that we are getting is giving us a lot of time to reflect on that. And then people are at home. I hear from chefs, first time I've spent time home with my kids, spend so much time with my parents, school lunches, things like food in hospitals. I mean, these are issues that, sometimes I've been trying to bring them up for years, but nobody paid attention. And now I'm hearing back, yes. So I feel like health is going to be a big factor. And also when we speak about fine dining, we are going to change the kind of guests we are getting. Fine dining is still going to exist, but the kind of people who used to save for a year to go and eat at this one restaurant on their bucket list, maybe that won't happen for a long time, because economies are in disarray everywhere. People don't have expendable income. And what we are going to get is, maybe younger millenniums who are maybe making, a good, making like a killing in the media market, or the virtual information market, or the mass sales like Amazon and all that. Those will be the clients, and they will not be the ones who want to come and take a picture with the chef. These are guys who are going to be very demanding and kind of state what they exactly want. And so there's going to be some kind of a role reversal. And we are also seeing that the changing with this pivot to the takeout and delivery is going to stay, because I talk to chefs, 3-star or 2-star restaurant. They say, well, we are going to keep this as a backup because we don't know what will happen next. This probably, like what we hear from the scientists, is not the last pandemic, but this is a change we are seeing in the chef of the future. When did you ever hear of a chef, speak about the health of the soil? How many chefs were speaking about what kind of fuel they use in the restaurant was going to impact the environment? So it's going to be really changing pretty fast, because this awareness is hitting faster right now through this time period. And so we have to be cognizant of that, and we have to start addressing that. So we have to get more active in our in our communities, within our networks. In the last few years, with all the conferences and all these other things, we were building good networks, which were more like media networks. Now we need to build working community networks. It's like right now Beirut experienced that horrific the explosions. And there were chefs asking me, because a few months ago we had a feature on the Souk Al Tayeb, which was working there. How can you connect me, Geeta, to somebody there? I want to go and help there. I want to do this and I want to do that. And that's really, it's a wonderful thing, that we are also thinking of our colleagues, our peers, so it's like making a big family altogether. To support and be there in times of need. So I feel like the future is really going to be different. And maybe also we had too many restaurants right now in some parts of the world to begin with. And right now we're going to weed out a lot of that. There'll be a lot of career changers who might decide that, oh my God, this is too tough. And I'd rather, go into a 9-to-5 job or something, or do something other than that. I mean, those were the days when I switched from teaching in a university to coming to cook. It was not something that was looked upon. Everybody was like, are you crazy? Are you nuts? I mean, everybody is upset with me. But now, people want to come in for different reasons, but I think those reasons are going to change why they want to come in. Maybe we'll have more young people come in who want to make a change than just, be on some popular, TV series, or, be on the cover of magazines, etc. So that's my take on I feel is going to happen.
You said that the world of the fine dining and the future of the chefs will change. It already has changed because of the pandemic. I'm thinking about the aspect of the chefs attending seminars all over the world, flying from one place to another, of course, to listen, to learn, to share experiences. And I would like to ask whether you think is something that is missing now and was very good, or just the opposite, now gives the chefs the time to discover more their kitchen, the cuisine that they are working on or have been working on for many years, or discover something local. Emma, what do you think? Is traveling for seminars something that is lacking from your calendar, or you cherish the moment that you can focus on what you've been doing for some time?
So I think it's very different, and it's very strange here in New York as of the moment, because it's one of the cities that has really been shut down completely. So it's you definitely have the time to reflect upon yourself, not barely hitting half of your work hours that you normally do. So I definitely miss traveling a lot, but it's also been very rewarding to be able to stay at home and take a little bit of a moment to focus on what's in front of yourself. But it's definitely something I'm missing. I've been traveling my entire life to experience the world and get an idea of what happens outside of my little bubble. So it's something that I've always valued to make me grow. So it's been very challenging as well to be stuck at home and not being able to go anywhere. And in New York as well, we've been on a halfway lockdown, so there hasn't been anything that you could do more than being home. So I think it's one of those things that are maybe more suited for people who have family close by or have a family. My family is all back home in Sweden, so I think it's mostly have been hard for me to be stuck here on my own.
Sure, that is understandable fully, that if we are stopped from visiting our family, our dearest, then the traveling gets totally different meaning also in this private life. I would like to ask each of you about the inspiration, because we said that it's so, at the beginning of our discussion, that it's so important to find the inspiration in the chefs as well. Also, Geeta, you've mentioned that there's a lot of inspiration on the pages of the Salty magazine, not from the people who are very famous or very big, but it's something that is important or very sweet even on a small scale. So I would like to ask each of you who you admire as a chef or as a personality, and why. Why would you think that they are worth going their path, or at least taking something from their careers or from their way of thinking and applying it to your lives? Maybe starting from Margot.
Yeah, there's a lot of chefs I admire, but I think I really admire the people that worked in my kitchen, that were born in the village, just went to school, and straight from school basically came to my kitchen and worked with me for 18, 20 years, and was so incredibly loyal. And I kind of broke their heart when I left. And so there's one chef, her name is Jackie, and she's a couple of years younger than me. She has 4 children, and she now has 2 grandchildren. And she stayed on when I left and continued cooking, and she learned a lot, but never went to any kind of tertiary school. And she was retrenched after 28 years of service. And she's just started a new job in a tapas restaurant in our village, and she's heading up the kitchen. And yeah, I think it's her that at this point, I'm so proud of her as well. But she's doing it, and she's never been outside this village, and so I think it's those kind of warriors that I admire. She's never been in an aeroplane, and I think that's where I get very inspired from, that courage.
Surely. Antonia, what would be your inspiration?
Well, it's really difficult to choose one person, and every day is different for me. Every day you jump out of the bed really tired from the evening before, and you have to push during the day, every day, to be better. For me, the day is like this, every day. It's not a competition against someone else, of course. Is something that you have inside you that pushes you to be a better cook, a better person, maybe. And every day someone inspires me, something inspires me, and every day is a research, and this is something really true for me. Sometimes is a picture, sometimes is an artist, sometimes is a story, and sometimes is an article that you read in a newspaper. Today is an article that I've read about Elenda Rose and about her restaurants and how was her lockdown. It was an interesting article that I've read like 2 hours ago. But maybe Margot today during these talks, every person who tells and shares something beautiful helps my creativity and my day. This is something that I love about our job.
Yeah, to be constantly inspired.
Yes, exactly.
Emma, what would be your inspiration? What is your inspiration?
Well, I think as well, it's you draw inspiration from so many different people, and there's chefs all over the world that I look for different inspirations from. But I think someone that always inspires me really, really much is a baker that I've had with me, or she's been coming and going throughout the years. I've been leading the kitchen, and her name is Farine. And I think what inspires me with her is that her dedication and her kindness and the way she moves into the kitchen and just makes everyone calm and happy. And I keep telling myself every day at work that if I could be just like her, the world would be a better place. So I think when it comes to inspirations, I don't always look to people are out there in the world. I think just looking to a woman who are next to me, who makes my day at work happy. And whenever I work next to her, I know it's going to be a good day. So having her there and having her as my inspiration is it's a big difference going to work every day.
Thank you for sharing that. Geeta, you've talked to so many people as for the Salty magazine. Who's your inspiration?
You know, many of these people I've known for over 30 years. I'm always very inspired by Carmen Rusquera in Spain, because she was the one person who changed my perception about, the women-only forums and things like that, because I began to understand that they create more divisions than they bring people together, because what we are fighting against, we are creating all over again with, the discrimination. I'm also very inspired by people like, say, Rodolfo Guzman in Chile, who put his country's cuisine on the map, and he's, against all odds. I mean, 5 times he was ready to give up and sell, but he did it. I'm inspired by people like Margot, who gave up something to give back in a real way. I mean, this is real action. This is not, not many of us, like in life, sometimes we think about when will be the right time to do a certain thing. The right time is always now. You never know what tomorrow brings. We already seen that with the pandemic. I admire people, who have stuck in the industry for 30, 40 years, because this is a very tough business. It takes a lot of perseverance, a real passion, to carry on at this stage. I admire people who, migrants from other countries who come in and establish a food business in another part of the world. We have so many strikes against them. I mean, we have to really, look around us sometimes. I unfortunately had too many experiences with, say, hospital food or whatever. I see a chef in Spain who's going out into the hospital kitchens, in Echo from Azurmendi to teach, how to cook something that's more nutritious, more delicious and better looking than the glutton stuff usually gets served. I'm inspired by people who go and work at soup kitchens. We have a huge homelessness problem here in LA. These are not people who are known in the media, who are big names or whatever, but they are doing something. So for me, anybody who actually does something, it doesn't have to be a very big thing that makes all the headlines, but who does something is an inspiration. Whenever you fight the odds for something you believe in, you inspire many others to follow you. That's what I think.
And this way, the chefs can save the world, can save the day for the people. I really like the outcome of this conversation. I really like those different backgrounds and stories you shared with us and your inspirations, because this is showing us what can be the chef of the future, the chef that is changing the world, the person who is very open-minded, keen to study, keen to build relationships and is listening to its community, the chef who is appreciating many people, not the big names, because it's easy to be starstruck with a big name, with a big chef who had a great career. But it's I think even bigger thing to appreciate somebody just next to us who doesn't have a big name but has a big heart and does something really crucial for the community or for this small world that we are surrounded by. Thank you very much, ladies, for joining us for this discussion. I hope this will be inspirational to all of those who are listening and watching us, and that this discussion also changed their little worlds. And I would like to invite all our listeners for a 15 minutes coffee break.